Cool. Welcome to week 12 of Mobile App Portfolio 2. We've got 2 weeks to go, which is going to be our last sprint. And our last sprint is going to focus on kind of wrapping things up really nicely, which is why we're going to be talking about testing today and testing our mobile apps specifically. Okay. And then I'm going to give you guys an assignment at the end of this where you actually have to fill out a testing form to prove to me that you have, put your app through all of these tests. So this will kind of be something that'll be involved in your final sprint and in your sprint planning meeting today after we do our presentations. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so to test on Android, you need to be a developer, and to turn on developer options, you need to go to these settings specifically, and it's kind of a funny way you do it. You tap your version number 10 times in the settings, and then it actually enables developer options for you as one of your settings, which is kind of cool. And then what you can do from there inside of developer options is enable USB debugging. Okay, and then this will give you a whole bunch of options when you're debugging your app that you wouldn't have had access to before. Well, there's other things that you also need to put into your actual Android file to be able to test your app, okay? And it's this line here, Android debuggable. It's a Boolean value, so you can set it to true or false in your manifest.xml file. And obviously, if your iPhone, this is different for you, but save this file, and then with your USB drivers installed and up to date and your USB cable on a device plugged into your computer, you can now run your project in debug mode on your actual physical device, which is really helpful. Okay, so just a couple things to note for Android if you want to do testing. Okay, so what is testing and why might we want to test? Any ideas, guys? You can throw it in the chat. I'll open my chat here so I can read from it. If you're watching the video afterwards on YouTube, then feel free to put it in the comments below. Okay, my chat has moved. There we go. WebEx just updated their system here. Okay, cool. I've got my chat open. Any ideas? What's testing? Why would we test our mobile apps? Why is it a good idea? Remember, way back at the beginning of the semester, we talked about the system development life cycle and the 5 phases of the SDLC, or the system development life cycle. So why might we test? What do we think? Nobody? Oh, perfect. To find bugs in our app. Thank you, Harshil Kumar. To make the app bug free. Perfect. Okay, and so going back to the SDLC, do you guys remember what phase might this fall under or align with in the system development lifecycle? So we've got inception, we've got design, we've got development, and then the last two kind of have to do with when you're finishing up your app. One is deployment, okay, which you guys have worked on and got your stuff on the App Store. But now, what if you have a user that's testing your app that's been deployed and they find a bug, okay, or you have beta testers and they find a bug, then what do? Your app's deployed, then what do we do? What's that last phase? Anyone remember? Try to give you some hints here. So we want to be able to support our users. We want to be able to update anything that goes wrong or maintain it. It'd be a constant process. I'll give it to you guys. It's maintenance and support, right? So it'd be that, constant getting that feedback from your users and then updating what needs to be fixed to continually support your app and keep it up to date. So that's what application testing is referring to. It's the process of testing that software using, test frameworks, scripts, tools, or manually doing it. And we can do this in 2 phases. You can test the front end of your app, and then you can test the back end of your app. So if your apps have databases, you want to test the database behavior with, data storage, information, the creation and deletion of it, and then you also can test the front end, like the design. Does it Does it respond the way you expect it to when you rotate your screen or if you're on low battery mode? Little things like that that can just cause little bugs. So there's also two ways to perform this application testing. One is manual and one is automated. So manual is used more frequently by developers at the beginning, right? Because it's really easy, you know what you're checking. And it's hard to automate it because your app is constantly changing and there's no real set in stone pathways for the way your app is interacted with. Now, automated testing is really cool, and you use it once the app is entirely developed, and you can automate test scenarios from the end user's perspective to evaluate the usability, functionality, and performance of the app. So what you can do is actually write a test scenario, and then you can just run your tests, and it will go through a list of tests that you've pre-designed, and say one of your tests could be like signing up a user or something like that. And you have your app fill out all that information and do it automatically. And then that saves you a lot of time of having to type out the email, check the email, verify it, and all that stuff, and making it automated, right? Okay. So it's categorized into two segments. We have our web app testing and then our desktop app testing. Or maybe more so, I could say this would be for mobile app testing down here at the bottom is the one we want to focus on. So the types of testing you do depends on the environment you're testing in, right? So if you're testing for a web app, you want to test across browsers, whereas that doesn't really matter on a mobile app because it's going to be on the native device. So if it's for an iPhone, then you won't need to test it on an Android, right? So the things we test for web apps are different. The things we test for desktops are different. The things we test for mobile application testing. So UI, we want to make sure our design is the way we want it to look. We have rule-based testing, regression testing, functional testing, and security testing. And we'll get into those in this lecture a little bit more. Cool? So the benefits. Why might it be good? I know some of you guys said earlier to find bugs in the app and to make the app bug-free. So we can see right there in the first sentence, it helps us release a bug-free app into the real world and get those things early on, as well as it's part of agile development, right? So that's the trend right now. It's using that system development lifecycle and being agile, and this helps introduce new features faster, and then we can also test as we go, which is kind of the whole point of it, right? And then you're able to stay relevant, you're able to stay competitive with other apps out there that are maybe similar to you. Cool. So what testing tools are out there? I was talking a little bit about automated testing, and what tools are out there to help. So a testing tool, first of all, is something that can do quality assurance and manage and regulate that process. So a couple of them that are popular: Selenium for automated web app testing. So for us, that's not really applicable because we're not doing web apps. And Selenium Web Driver for testing native web and hybrid mobile apps. Appium, okay, is a really preferred app automation framework. Okay, so if you want to look into Appium to do automated testing, for our purposes, you could probably do most of your testing manually, but if you do a couple of automated test cases, that'd be really cool. Like web app testing, mobile app testing is kind of based on the same strategy. There's different tools and different types of tests you want to run. And a couple more examples of frameworks that we could use for this are Sakuli, Test Complete, PhoneMonkey, and Robotium. Cool? All right, so how do we test our application? How do we actually do this? Now that we know the tools to use and we know why we're doing it, how do we do it? Well, first of all, every app's different, okay? Every time you test, between one group to the other group in this course specifically, even the way you test your apps is going to be different. And you might have different features in your app than some other classmate of yours. So we need to ensure that we're developing applications in a robust way that meets all of the end user requirements. And you guys know your users, you know why they're using this app. So you guys are going to be the best people to test this app. So the fundamental steps, I've kind of broken it down into 4 steps here for testing an application. We want to create a test plan, right? So planning is huge, obviously, in development. If you don't plan, um, then you won't succeed, right? So creating a test plan, and I'll show you an example of a test plan and give you guys that at the end of class today, um, according to your requirements for your app. Then you're going to develop manual test case scenarios from the end user perspective for that test plan. And then eventually, and you might get here at this point in the next couple of weeks, and you might not, is automating those test scenarios using scripts. So, like Android Studio has automated testing. You can use scripts in Android Studio as well as with Swift. And then number 4, performing the functional tests and validating if everything works. So actually running those tests basically. And if things fail, then you update and fix what needs to be updated. Cool. So example test cases for mobile application testing. A complete mobile application strategy includes device and network infrastructure and a selection of target devices. So you want to test on Android, you want to test on a newer Android phone, you want to test on an older Android phone. If you're going cross-platform, you want to test on iPhones as well, maybe Samsungs, and get an effective combination of devices as well as manual and automated tests to cover both the non-functional and functional testing. Okay, for mobile app, things to be tested are obviously installation. Okay, you want to make sure it installs on every device. Wi-Fi, data cable, Bluetooth, all of those sort of basic things. You want to make sure that they're still working when your app's plugged in. Uninstallation, you want to make sure a logo shows up, a splash screen. If there's low memory on the device, you want to make sure that it gives a warning. Visual feedback, exiting the application works. It doesn't, pause and just hang there on the application thread. And then you want to be able to start and restart the application smoothly. Cool. So how do you test your apps? Well, there's a couple more helpful links here if you guys want to read about it from Appium or responsive testing. And some more resources here at the end of this PowerPoint here on Android Developer Studio/Test, as well as Software Testing Beginner's Guide to Software Testing. So that's just a little introduction to it. I'm going to show you guys, we'll exit this. I want to show you guys a little document that I've got. So this is assignment 5, and oops. Where is it? There it is. Assignment 5, go. Oh. And I'll be posting this to Blackboard a little bit later. I suppose I should end this recording and split them up so they're kind of, divided by topic. So I'll stop this.